Welcome back to District 32 Radio, Australia's best and premier radio network online. And, well, business coaching, it's one of those areas. We're all aware of them, we've all been exposed to them, there's lots of them around. Some would say, with a degree of cynicism, that there's not as many around as there used to be, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But one that is still around and doing lots of good stuff is Wayne Cook, and he joins us right here on District 32 Radio. Wayne, how are you doing?
Going sensational. How yourself?
Very well. The whole coaching market, it sort of seems to have reached a bit of a plateau at the moment in terms of there does seem to be not as many around as there were, say, 2 or 3 years ago. Is that symptomatic of the fact that the market's changed dramatically, or the fact that the ones that weren't necessarily all that good at what they were doing have fallen away?
That's a really interesting question. I mean, a big part of probably what happens is, like, you know, if people are coming from a school background in regards to the coach school, you could argue that there are good schools and there are not so good schools.
Yes.
And so that would also be a part of the credibility in regards to the coaches that are coming out of those schools as well. So is it just purely the coaching models? Is it also there is a business angle to it? So it's actually equipping the coaches to go forth and do what they need to do, because a lot of them are really good at their people skills and they're just doing coaching to add their toolkit and then really go forth in that arena. Have they run businesses before and so forth is probably the question that comes up.
Well, that's a really interesting point, because that I think could actually be quite a central point to the whole discussion there, because of the expansion of the franchise model in particular of coaching. There seemed to be an awful lot of people that had come from other backgrounds, had come from, you know, say there's still maybe management roles and other sorts of backgrounds where they've landed a lump of money. It's not enough to go and buy a news agency or that sort of cash flow, but they, you know, for a smaller amount of money, they can actually buy into a system, if you like, and become a business coach. And they've got some business background, but being a middle manager in a government department is extraordinarily different to running a small business, isn't it?
Yeah, I used to go into a lot of local government, other government departments, and there tends to be a lot of insular operation that happens in each person's role. So then to go into a role where you are the head of finance, the head of marketing, the head of sales, the head of service delivery, you know, that's a lot of hats to wear, and that could be part of the question as well, as to whether all those hats can be worn when someone might have been used to just having that one role and they did it really well. Yeah. But now it's about a multitude of hats.
And that's an interesting point as well, because you're right. There's so many people that might have worked, you know, been quite senior in the marketing department or in the finance department. But again, there's even a big difference between being that and being the general manager, where you're overseeing all of those departments and that sort of thing. But a lot of these people seem to become coaches, and then all of a sudden, you know, they've got their strengths, obviously, but like everyone else, it also leaves them exposed, doesn't it?
It does. And, you know, the world of coaching is very broad. If someone says, I do coaching, the first question that comes up is what type of coaching? Yeah. So I guess a part of the journey or the survival of making it is working out what is your niche, what is your market, and that there is, I think, is a journey of the person and also testing out what they have to see if it resonates with a market that's going to accept them and work with them as well.
Well, there's a logical next question. What's your niche?
What's really interesting, like if someone said to me, like, Wayne, I want to work out and sit down and do a load of KPIs and let's work out truckloads of strategy and all the rest of it, I'd say, great, there's a lot of coaches out there that will do that. Yeah. If someone said to me, I want to work out what's unique for me and my business, or unique for me and my other aspects of my life, I'd say, cool, let's rock and roll, let's do that. So I would say identification about who they are and how that relates to their external world.
That sort of conflicts in a way, doesn't it? Because we're told on one hand, there's one school of thought that says you shouldn't be your business. You know, you're not defined by your business. But the reality is, for any of us that have ever been in business, you actually are, whether you like it or not. The business is a reflection of your own personality, your own values and all that sort of thing, and vice versa. Your identity is linked to the success or otherwise of your business. And it's sort of inescapable, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, if there's lots of different literature, books, and so forth out there in regards of identifying a tribe. You know, and a part of a tribe is that it becomes a reflection of you anyway. Like, you are what you bring to that tribe, and that tribe is sexy because of what you can bring to it. You've had success in those areas, and they acknowledge that, and that's why you lead that group of people that stems over into a business world. So I would say there's a lot of person in what they do in regards to business, especially as a coach. However, it's very important also to realise that there are boundaries. Yeah, there's professional boundaries to have with whoever I come in contact with in regards to my work. I don't go to all their family barbecues and so forth,
Yes.
but do I know really intimate things about their life and help them on a professional level? Yes.
That separation and I suppose that identification of who that person is, because that does help mould your business and all the rest of it. And you're saying that's something you quite get involved in. That type of coaching is quite different to someone, you know, sort of banging on the table saying you need to do more sales calls today, isn't it?
Yeah. I believe in more the transformational coaching. You know, who are you going to be to get the results? If that there is action coaching out there, which is about, you know, for this month, this is what you need to do.
Yes.
And we're going to check in and see how you're going. And I think if the person makes transformation in that process over a 12-month period, great, that's a winner. If that person only makes those changes whilst they're being prompted and guided to do so, then once they drop away from that relationship and they go back to their default because they haven't changed, then I see that as something that which can be improved.
And so those philosophies and trying to identify that, what do you do that you find effective to actually, because as you said, you get to know some pretty intimate stuff about these people to find out what they, you know, what makes them tick effectively. How do you go about that?
If people haven't haven't had exposure to coaching before and they're saying, I'm not getting what I want in my business, I think a part of it is that we head generally in the opposite direction of what they think that they're coming to me for. Yes, I'll get into story. Yes, I'll go, what are the results you're getting? But continually, I'm bringing it back to who they are. And I'm saying, so what is it about what you're doing now isn't getting that result? What is the thinking that you have that's getting your current results? If you want this result, what thinking do you need to change to get that result? So who do you need to be to do what you need to do to have what you want to have?
Which again takes it back to that total lack of separation between the person and the business, doesn't it?
Totally.
And equally, even a big business still has the same issue, because the guy that runs a big business, whilst, you know, filters down, you've got department heads and all the rest of it, still the culture, if you like, that is driven by the person at the top and his values still flows through an organisation.
Yeah, and I think it's really important, if you look at something like that, is if you do have max exodus of staff, if you do have the bottom line that's not working the way it's working, if the culture and the feedback from your environment, which is your customers, isn't what you want, then it's about that person going, hey, well, what is it that's about me and what is it that I need to change, and having a look at that and being open to that to get the different results. You know, if the environment's feeding back and it's not congruent with what you want, then review it.
Most people are pretty resistant to change. They don't like it, do they? So if you go in and you start working with someone and you identify that things aren't the way they should be, and okay, whether it be the business results, but ultimately, as you're saying, it's probably more the person themselves creating the business results. It's sort of a chain of events, isn't it? So to get someone, first of all, to recognise that there needs some change and then to actually implement that change, is that probably the biggest challenge of the whole thing?
Yeah, look, I think I'm pretty perceptive about working out where the individual needs to go. And as tempting as it could be to say, this is where you need to go, what do you think about that? I hold back. And I'm happy to explore and go around and put some ideas and concepts around the heart of what it's all about, see the reaction, and even if it means coming back for another session and so forth.
Yeah.
It's a much more valuable process for them to arrive at that conclusion, as challenging or as easy it is, because that's going to be more sustainable. It was their idea. They've made the connection. They've made the change. Rather than me going, this is what you need, and if you do this, you rock it out. What's the use? Like, it's another strategy.
Well, I guess there's two aspects to that, isn't there? There's the one where it's, you know, if you convince them that it's their idea in the first place, then, you know, it's much stronger. But it's also, I suppose, a bit deeper than that as well, with the whole thing about, you know, an alcoholic is not an alcoholic until he goes, I'm an alcoholic. Everyone can tell him till the cows come home, and he can be unconscious in the gutter every day, but until he actually says it and admits it and accepts it, he isn't one.
Yeah.
So therefore, the process, if you like, of recovering or changing or whatever it may be, can't start till you reach that point of realisation.
Yeah.
I guess it's a little bit the same, maybe not as extreme, one hopes, but it's the same concept, isn't it? Until they actually realise it and go, wow, actually this problem starts with me, and this is why, and I need to change that. That resistance to change is always going to be there, isn't it?
Yeah. If I think back on an example where I was coaching a lady, and she went from being in a team environment where she was one of a few staff members doing the same role. This is in a pretty major bank, and this is over east. And she went up into a role, like a manager role. And she was having a co-worker white-anting her and the looks and the attitude and all the rest of it, because she got the job over the other person. And I said to her, what if there was one strategy? What if there was one thing that would take care of all the problems that you're having? Would you be up for that? She said, yeah. I said, well, what is that? And she goes, I don't know. I said, okay, we'll come back to that. And we kept on going, we kept on going, we kept on going. And she came to the conclusion. She said, wow, I just stick to what I know is right. And instead of putting the focus on him and focusing on, is he going to be upset, and so forth and so forth, instead of putting the focus there, put the focus on I know I'm doing my job, I do it with integrity, respect and honesty for everyone involved, and everything will work out just fine. And she came to that conclusion herself. And then she went, I got it. That's what you mean by just one thing. And like it worked a treat for her, because she worked at it and she got it herself. I've said if there was just one thing, I knew it was just about make it about her, do her job, and don't focus on the problem.
Yeah.
She'd get it.
Yeah.
And she did.
Which is so true in so many aspects of life. If you focus on what you're doing and not what, you know, how it's going to affect someone else, or someone else that isn't going to like it or something, it's going to create a problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
To contact you and talk more about what Wayne Cook Coaching does.
Yeah, certainly. There's email, which is wayne@waynecookcoaching.com, or the mobile is 0421 772 448.
That is excellent. Thanks for your time today.
Thank you very much.
Wayne Cook from Wayne Cook Coaching, with some very insightful information, and you can contact him, and we'll be back with more very shortly on District 32 Radio.